Well, let's welcome in Mark Matthews of Bank Julius Baer and Companies with us now. Mark, really, the news flow has been, if anything, it's picked up even more with this war of words between President Trump and Elon Musk. From a market standpoint, and I outlined that in detail, in the order of how it went down. But from a market standpoint, it's almost counterintuitive. And just a thought, and you can disagree if you want. I mean, if this is going to tie President Trump's hands in terms of how he can flex on tariffs, trade, etc., it could be positive for markets, isn't it? I mean, if tariffs were painful for markets, and this is going to lead to President Trump maybe pulling back, I don't know. What's the way to look at it? Could it actually at the margin be a little positive of a weaker White House?
I think we'll only be able to know in retrospect what the impact of this falling out between the two men will be. It's very strange, of course, that their relationship became so important in the first place. And so I guess one thing I've been thinking about is Elon Musk was the very first of the technology billionaires. Actually, I have to take that back. It was Peter Thiel way many years ago. But the first of the technology billionaires to really get on side with Donald Trump last year was Elon Musk. And he made hundreds of millions of dollars in donations to the Republican Party. And then you had many of the other technology billionaires following him once it became apparent that Donald Trump was going to win the election. So to the extent that he was a pioneer in Silicon Valley's pivot toward Trump, I wonder if his falling out with Trump could also be a signal that Silicon Valley will become increasingly disenfranchised with Trump. I really don't know. Elon Musk is powerful because he is the richest man in the world. He is the largest donor to the Republican Party. And those are all things to consider. But the impact on the market, I think there's so many variables, it's really difficult to say whether it's a negative or a positive. To your point, it could well be a positive.
Mark, what do you believe? Do you think it's really about those EV credits which has caused the fallout? Or do you think it is the fisc itself? I mean, spending tax cuts now, spending cuts later. I mean, the usual political style, which is basically part of this bill as well. What do you think? By the way, I spoke to Nomura's chief economist yesterday, and he said that actually it's not so bad. I mean, the bill which has been proposed. This is the chief economist, one of the largest banks, essentially saying, what happened is in 2017, there were a lot of tax cuts which were expiring. So this bill just kind of extends those tax cuts. So it's being looked at this big sort of unprecedented blowout in the fisc, but he said it's not. So what's your sense?
There are tax cuts additional to the extensions, but the majority of the deficit is due to the extensions. And most economists like the idea of cutting taxes to the corporate sector because when that happens, you tend to get an increase in investment. And that is the best thing for economic growth, is an increase in investment. It has a much bigger multiplier impact than an increase in consumption. But I think that Elon Musk, in his heart, and the whole reason why he wanted to back Donald Trump, wants to improve the United States in a multitude of ways, from social to economic. And he believes that running the country this way is not viable, which I think we could all agree with. It's like running a company at a perpetual loss. And the fiscal deficit will widen from about 6-7%, where it is now, to 9% next year. That doesn't look good. I mean, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Nigeria, I don't mean to pick on those countries, but those are the kind of countries that run deficits of 9%. The US historically ran a deficit of between 2 to 3%. So I think that he doesn't like that. But who knows? Maybe he also doesn't like the fact that the EV credits are being canceled.
Yeah, so how noble is the intent behind this public war? I think we won't know. I think this is just going to go on for a bit till there's certainty and clarity. Mark, morning. So coming back to markets, and so much has been thrown at markets between all the trade skirmishes and what's happening with Musk and, China is unleashing an EV price war. Despite all this, look at what the markets have done around the world. 5% up this month on the S&P, 5% up in a market like Hong Kong, 9% up in, Kospi in Korea. That market's playing catch up after the I think, political uncertainties behind them. The Nifty's actually, underperformed. India relatively is up only 1-2% in the last 1 month. What is that telling us? That the direction in general of equities, do you think over the next couple of months, will it still be higher?
Well, I think the major thing that's changed this year, and I like it, by the way, is the idea that you should have all your eggs in one basket. Of course, I'm talking about the United States. That's being questioned, and the U.S. is underperforming the rest of the world. And for 15 years, I don't want to say in a row, but for 15 years, we had this massive outperformance of the U.S. versus the rest of the world. And I think it's ended, at least for, call it a year or 2 or 3. I think you're going to continue to get good outperformance in the rest of the world. And the reason is that the political volatility in America and this very expansive budget, which is widening the deficit, are causing weakness in the dollar, which was already quite expensive because the dollar had been outperforming most other currencies for also several years in a row. So dollarizing returns, the rest of the world really looked good, and I think it will continue to look good because the dollar really should continue to weaken. And so Hong Kong should continue to outperform.
Right.
Korea is very cheap, so I guess it could, but I think it's threatened by the rise of BYD and Huawei and Xiaomi and all that kind of thing. And then India is a good story. It remains a good story. It will benefit from a weaker dollar, but it had already been doing quite well. So I'm not surprised that it's not one of the big outperformers this year.
Well, we have been one of the big outperformers for the last many years, Mark, and I think you've alluded to that in our earlier conversations. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure, short conversation, but